Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA11. I am your host, Anna Orr, and today we are talking with Matthew Hall, who is playing J.P. Who in the Children's Theater Company production of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We're going to have a conversation about his connection to theater, the inclusivity and accessibility that is being offered through this production at the Children's Theater Company, and a lot of other things you may not expect. You'll want to stay tuned. This is going to be a really good episode. Matthew Hall, welcome to the program. This is Community Connections.
Hello.
Now, you are here representing the Children's Theater Company here in the Twin Cities, and you guys are doing the upcoming production of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
That's
Are you
correct.
excited about this?
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled.
This is such a classic story, and I think each time I see a different iteration from the original to the latest version that just came out on film and now the production, it seems like it's still just a timeless story. How have rehearsals been going so far?
Rehearsals have been going very well. This is a story that the Children's Theater has done about 9 times, and it really shows in how organized they are in putting it together. And the show has so much heart and there's so much warmth to it that it makes sense that this is something that the audiences want to keep coming back to see, because it's got a very good story to tell that I think is good for everyone to see.
Now, you are an intricate part of the production playing J.P. Who. Can you talk to me about who you see this character to be for somebody that may not have seen this at all?
Yeah, J.P. Who is kind of like your classic, very wholesome sitcom dad. You know, I've got 5 kids in the show, and I live with my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law, and my wife. So it's a family of 9 of us on stage. And the only name that most people would recognize if they're not familiar with this production is Cindy Lou Who. So he's Cindy's dad. So when everyone else is asleep and she wakes up and sees the Grinch, that's his connection to that. But he's doing his best to make sure that this is going to be the best Christmas ever, and do his best to keep his very large family together so they don't get lost when they're doing things like shopping and getting ready to get everyone in bed. And there's very much a theme of this is going to be a very big Christmas for all of us, but of course none of the Who's know that what the Grinch is plotting, and that it's going to be a much more significant Christmas than any of them initially planned.
I think that's a wonderful description. Cindy Lou Who is one of my favorite characters of all time. So the fact that you are playing her dad, I think is so cool. Now, there are so many intricate gems, I feel like, that are sprinkled throughout this storyline. Community, the importance of kindness, and so much more. What are some of your favorite stories interweaved with this story, or maybe a nostalgic line or something that really connects to you? Because you're doing this night after night and repeating these things more and more. So what is something that you find to connect with?
Yeah, I think a really big theme of the Grinch is, especially in the holiday spirit, just never giving up on someone. My character is one of the few characters who, before the story, has actually encountered the Grinch a couple of times. And when we first see the Grinch on stage in Whoville, there's a lot of this feeling of like, what am I going to say? What's going to happen? And no one says anything. And it's my character that steps forward and just says, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Grinch. How do you do?" And I think the Who's are a very idyllic society. And the director said a really good way. He said they're the kind of people we should strive to be. You know, they maintain positivity through all things. And I think it's really powerful that the Grinch kind of represents this one area of negativity that exists in this entire world. And even still, when he arrives, the Who's are definitely perplexed and we're a little bit afraid of what's going on, but we don't show any kind of malice. We exclusively show kindness to the Grinch because everyone is hoping that things could be better with him, especially little Cindy Lou who very clearly, I think, represents the Who ideology the best. And she never even really shows any fear of him. She always steps up right to him and asks him how things are and checks in with him. And I think it's a lesson I've learned of a real kill him with kindness kind of story, that no matter how much negativity he brings in, the Who's just overload him with positivity, and that ends up turning him around in the end.
What is one of the things that you are looking forward to offering the audience coming to see this production at the Children's Theater Company?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to offer the audience a story that's good for the whole family. And it's obviously very family friendly, but it's not fully just a children's show because the comedic timing of people like Reed, who's playing the Grinch, is such a high quality that there's some shows where the idea is you bring your kids there, then you kind of tune it out for a half hour or whatever. But Grinch is a story where everyone who sees it is going to enjoy it together. And I think that's what makes it so powerful. I think if it were just a show that only kids are going to care about, it wouldn't be a show that they want to do 9 times and be running for. I think it's been running for 31 years. They first opened this production in 1994. And I'm really excited for audiences, hopefully, especially new audience members, to be surprised at just how much depth and heart there is to this show, because it is a very simple story. The title is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and we see him steal Christmas. But I think the amount of heart and storytelling within it, and all of the different family units and how different people are going about their Christmas and their different concerns and struggles and maintaining positivity through that, I think is a very welcome thing to see in the holiday season. And one other thing is that I think this production does a really good job of showing that while we want to maintain Christmas positivity all the time, the season doesn't always give us things that we want to be positive about. For instance, it deals with, you've forgotten a bunch of things you need to do and you're shopping at the very last minute. Sometimes it gets crazy cold. Sometimes people are just getting really frustrated with each other. And it's not some sort of utopian society where all problems are gone. The problems are still there. The difference is that the Who's attitudes around the problems that can arise during the holidays stay very light and positive. And I think that's where I want my mind to be when I think of the holidays. Yes, there's going to be stressful times, but I don't need to be promoting any kind of negativity because of it.
I think you mentioning it being an all ages show is so important because I think there are some universal things that are being shared, as you just mentioned about the holiday season, sometimes being difficult for people to contend with, especially people that feel maybe left out or disconnected from their communities or from their families. And the way that the people around the Grinch start to show up for him. And it turns around in such a beautiful way. I think it's something we all need the nudge or the reminder to think about as we head into the holiday season.
Absolutely.
Now, talk to me. You said that this story has been going on since 1994. It has been in production at the Children's Theater Company. But what do you think that this year is going to bring as a sense of nuance or maybe freshness that people will be able to connect to specifically with this production and with your colleagues in this production?
Yeah, sure. So this is my first ever time doing The Grinch, and I'm very thrilled to be doing it. I recently did Frozen with the Children's Theater this past summer, and I've just completely fallen in love with the theater. And I was just so excited when I was able to land this role as well, because I would like to work here as much as possible. It's being directed by Dean Holt. He's a company member who's been working with the Children's Theater for a very long time. And I think he has over 100 credits of different shows at the Children's Theater over the past 3 or 4 decades. I don't know how long he's been working there. But he is directing the show, and he's playing Old Max, who is Grinch's dog. But he's kind of telling the story. He's responsible for the framing device. And luckily, he was also in Frozen, and I was able to have a good multitude of conversations with him about the heart of the story and what he wants. And one thing I think is really special about Dean as a director is this is a show that is very big and very lively, but some people can fall into the trap of saying it's going to be so big that we're going to wow the audience with all this spectacle, and that's what's going to hit them. And Dean, he's kept the show big, but he refuses to abandon the heart and the small intimate moments inside of that. And there are some times where someone wants to do something really big, especially me, because I tend to make really big gestures. And he says, okay, that's good, but maybe try having that same energy, but have it be really small and have it be really focused on one person, or really maintain that intention. And I think because of his directing style and some of the words he uses, I think audiences that key into a small part of what's happening somewhere on stage that might not be the main focus are going to see really good stories because he has worked really hard to make this a very personal and intimate and heartfelt story for everything happening on the stage, not just for whatever the main thing that's happening front and center is.
I think that's really important. Now, you mentioned Dean Holt, who is putting this production together, and I believe I read that this is his 13th year doing this specific one. And
believe
I think it's beautiful to witness the duality of him being behind the scenes, so to speak, and then also playing Old Max in the production. I think it brings a different level to what people are encountering.
It absolutely does. He understands the story very well. He knows all of these characters very intimately, and you can hear it in his voice when he delivers his Old Max lines that this is a story that just really touches his heart, and it warms my heart too. I try not to look over at the director's table when I'm doing my thing and try to stay in the world, but it's hard not to because Dean, there's certain scenes that he's watching, and he has this look in his eyes. And you can see he's getting misty-eyed. Sometimes he has been moved to tears in some of the things that have happened in rehearsals. And I sit here and think, you've been doing this show for decades, and you've seen so many people do it, and it's still moving you in this way. And I think that's really important for both sides of the creative team, that he is that invested in the show. And I am too, but pardon me. It makes sense that I'm very invested in the show. It's my first time doing it. So when I see little Cindy Lou Who sing to the Grinch, I'm hearing her do it for the first or second time. But Dean is equally, and if not more, moved than I am watching it happen. And he's been a part of this hundreds of times.
Now, Matthew, you mentioned that this is your first time doing this specific production, but like you also mentioned earlier, you have been a part of Frozen, playing Olaf, and so many other roles. You've been in Footloose, and so and so. However, what keeps you connected to storytelling in this specific way, Matthew?
One thing I found in the theater world is that I can't treat it like a normal job where I've got like a specific thing that's keeping me in, and it's all about constantly being in a state of discovery of saying, what is it going to be? What's going to help me in this show? What's going to help me in this theater or in this production? And one thing I found at children's theater specifically is that really paying attention to how the children are on stage is a very good reminder of who I used to be. I'm in my 30s now, so I'm seeing these kids, and I feel like I'm in my 30s and I'm playing a dad for the first time. I'm in my introduction to being the old guy to these kids. Like, I don't see myself as the old guy, but you tell that to the 10-year-old who can't even fathom what life was like in 2010. And I've found that seeing the way they are reminds me how I fell in love with theater. There are some times where like a song will come up that I'm not in, and I think, oh, I'm so happy I don't have to do anything. But then I see the little kids when they hear it's their turn to do their song, and they're so excited they get to finally do it. And it's a song they've sung 100 times in the past 2 weeks, but they're so excited to do it this time. And I know for this production and for Frozen, when I was playing Kristoff, I saw the love and the passion the kids had, and it almost reinvigorated my passion towards theater because no matter how much you love something, as you age, it's only natural to start getting jaded. And I have found the best cure for that is to see someone where everything is completely fresh and new for them, and then ask yourself, why can't it be that way for you? Just because I'm in my 30s now doesn't mean I can't love theater even more than I ever have before. And that's a lesson I feel like I can only learn from the children around me because nobody loves what they're doing like a child can.
I think that's very well said. Now, you've noticed that across the landscape, people are shrinking the budget for arts and for creatives to be able to express themselves and develop their skill set. But someone is going to come see you in this production at the Children's Theater Company, and I'm sure they're going to feel some sort of spark or inkling to get the bug, as people would say in the business. What would you say to them about pushing forward and still wanting to dream something that seems to be maybe impossible or farther out of reach than they expected?
I think in life, it is important to always be following your passions and be finding things that are filling your soul. And it can be hard, and it can be hard, especially when people say, I'm doing my best to fill my stomach. How can I do these things that feed my soul? But um, your humanity comes from finding things that are truly fulfilling to you. And these are hard economic times, but I will say that I personally, so I'm 33, so I was getting ready for college during the recession in 2008, and I have always loved theater, but I didn't really pursue it much as a young adult because I said that's not a really realistic thing for me. You know, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their homes. How am I supposed to pursue this? And so all I did is I just didn't, and I took a 5 year break from theater, and I kind of came back when I was in my mid 20s, and I learned that I am my best self when I am creating and when I am performing in some way. And I think the thing that I would tell those people is that sometimes you see what your passions and your goals are, and you say, if I can't get that specific thing, then I might as well not do it. And I say, maybe try moving forward to that thing. Maybe if you love seeing theater, but it's not in your budget all the time, instead of saying I'm going to try to see a show every couple of weeks, see a show once every few months or once every 6 months and make a big event out of it. If you love performing, but maybe professional theater's not in the cards for you because um, it doesn't work with your work hours, and you wouldn't want to be able to, you can't afford to leave your job for something that might not pay you as much. I say, I was working a full-time job when I got back in the theater, and I started doing community theater back in 2017, and it was just as fulfilling. I just wasn't getting paid, and I was able to maintain my other job and keep my life the same way. And I look back so fondly on my community theater days because everyone there is there for the same reason. We love theater, but it doesn't work with where my work schedule is right now, and that was a great jumping off point for me. So I guess the best way to say it is that your passions are your passions regardless, and if you can't achieve in the exact way that you want to right now, just start moving forward and start taking baby steps towards what it is you want to be doing, because you're going to be feeding your soul regardless of how much you're doing it. Just start going towards that direction.
Thank you for that. I love the fact that the Children's Theater Company also works with schools, bringing kids in to be able to see the productions. And I think that's so important, like you said, to keep fueling that little idea in the back of your brain for what's actually in your heart that you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think I saw a children's theater show when I was very young, but it's tough for me to remember those things because it was so long ago now. But the the feeling of seeing that we call them student matinees when a school comes and they kind of buy out the entire show and a bunch of classes come in. And I have never seen an audience that loves seeing a show the way some of these student matinees are. They laugh at everything. They're screaming and cheering after every song. They're singing along. And I think that's so important because I think that if you don't put a batch of kids in front of a show, they might not know that they're falling in love with theater, especially now where the arts aren't in their strongest state. And I think it's really important that these schools are coming and that children's theater is maintaining these relationships with them, because that could be that could be the kid that ends up taking my job in 20 years, and they don't even know that they're going to fall in love with theater. And then here I am now where I wasn't sure where I'd be with theater 10 years ago, and now I can't picture my life without it.
Now, you mentioned talking about budget and people that may not be able to consider looking at going to a theater production or even sending their children to a show. But I wanted people to know that the Children's Theater Company said that prices, tickets for the show start at $20. And I think that is doable for a lot of people to start thinking about versus looking at a large ticket and saying,
Yes.
maybe one day. I know that there were people in my own life that wanted to go see The Lion King on Broadway. And they had a playbill from a friend and they just kept saying, one day, one day, one day. But I think this is a more tangible option for people to start thinking about their love of theater or maybe supporting a soon-to-be actor or actress, in their network or community.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, rush tickets are also a thing. I think I saw Treasure Island this past week, and I believe the rush tickets were $15. And you buy them an hour ahead of time. With Grinch, it can be a little bit more difficult because the Grinch is so popular. So yeah, in that vein, yeah, if seeing a show, if you just want to see the show, I recommend doing your best to rush it. I also recommend doing it earlier in the run because once we get into the holiday season and everyone has their families around, I'm guessing every show is going to be sold out. So if you want to rush and see the Grinch, do it like at the beginning of November. Don't wait till after Thanksgiving because the entirety of the state of Minnesota is waiting until after Thanksgiving because they want to do a big holiday thing with their family. But yeah, if your love is seeing the show, Children's Theater does a very good job of having accommodations. They've got quiet rooms where you can view the show kind of behind glass. So if you've got a kid that wants to be standing, or if you've got a baby that's crying, you can still bring them to the show. They've got like altered lap prices if you've got like a baby or a toddler that doesn't really need their own seat, so you don't have to buy two seats for them. You pay like a small fee and then you just have them come with you. So yeah, Children's Theater works very hard to be many people's first theater experience, where another theater might say that child isn't old enough or you can't have a crying baby here. Children's Theater says, come on in, we'll find a way to make it work for you. We just want you seeing theater. And I love that philosophy.
I think that is so important. We love accessibility and we love inclusivity for people that may experience theater differently from a sensory standpoint, or like you said, if you have a small child with you, you don't have to worry about missing out on the production. That's really beautiful. Now, for those that are interested, the Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas runs November 4th, 2025 through January 4th, 2026 on the United Health Group stage. Thank you so much, Matthew Hall, for joining me on this episode of Community Connections. I really hope that someone stops through and sees you in this wonderful production as JP Who.
Yes, thank you. I've had a really good time talking to you, and I hope that anyone who sees this knows that they're welcome to come see the show and have a really good time. And if they see me after the show, I hope they stop by and talk to me, because I'm always thrilled to talk to anyone who has questions about the theater world and anything that they want to say or comments they want to pass along to someone they don't see. I think it's a really special production, and I'm really excited for the community to see it.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this episode of Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA11. A very special thank you to the entire team at the Children's Theater Company, Matthew Hall, and everyone that has helped put that production together, but also to you for watching. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr, and I look forward to connecting again with you soon.
Magaalaa bareedduu Minneapolis keessa jiraattanii yookiin gara magaalaa bareedduu tanaa dhufuudhaaf karoora qabdanii as dhuftanii dhimmoota akka rooba cabbii hamaa, haala qilleensa hamaa, rakkoo nageenya hawaasaa, bu'uraalee misooma gurguddaa fi dhiibbaa qophiilee adda addaa magaalaa Minneapolis ilaalchisee odeeffannoowwan argachuudhaaf rakkattanii jirtanii. Eeyyeen yoo rakkattanii jirtaniif furmaata harkaa isinii qabna. Aappii Smart 911 fayyadamuudhaan odeeffannoo kanneen argachuu ni dandeettan. Karaa aappii kanaatiin ergaa SMS, iimeelii, bilbila yookiin akeekkachiisa balaa tasaa bilbila kanarratti ergamu argachuu dandeettu. Akeekkachiifni ifaa fi bilisaa kun immoo bilbila naannoo keessanii irratti isiniif ergama. Maarree rakkoo kana jalaa bahuudhaaf homaa osoo hin turin hardhuma gama minneapolismn.gov/alert deemuudhaan galmaaha.